What is happening, guys? Welcome back. We are doing another. I don't even know what you'd call this one. It's a little review. I saw this thing on Instagram recently. I'm sure you've probably all seen it again once I bring it up. But going to get into whether Ken Roczen should get into racing downhill or not and what I think about it. Before we get into it, though, quick little word from Magic Mind. These guys are helping me out, making me have a clearer mind, less stressed, less anxious, calmer energy, and getting stuff done. So I'm going to drink one of these before we get into it, and then we're going with the show. Little health kick to get us going. So before we get into it, I'm going to show you the clip that Gypsy Tales put out recently and what Ken Roczen said, and then we're going to discuss about what I think about the whole thing. So here we go.
Stay an athlete, like first dude. Yeah, once I'm retired, like, I want to stay an athlete. Like, I feel like that's my thing. Like, whether that's going the mountain bike route or something along those lines.
We were talking about it like a couple of days ago. Being like, do you think a top level moto dude could do a World Cup? How long do you reckon it'd take you to train for one?
Well, the first part is I've never even really ridden a full downhill bike. There's definitely I need to go to some good spots and plan some trips for sure. I'm not taking anything away from the downhill guys. I'm not just saying like we can go win. But like I think going from moto to mountain bike is probably maybe a little easier than the other way around.
For sure,
right?
way less variable.
Yeah, and it just depends on where you're at. If you like that, then it'll come easier to you for learning to, because in the end it's seed time, and if you want to figure it out, you'll find a way.
Yeah, so you could see yourself actually trying to do that.
I think so, yeah.
Dude, I would love to see someone try and do that.
I met a gypsy.
Now, my first thing is it's hard for me to, I guess, know which way it would be easier to go, just for the fact I started riding push bikes or like little pedal bikes when I was probably like 2, 3 years old, and I started riding motorbikes when I was 4. So my whole life I've ridden both. So the crossover to each, I was obviously a lot better at mountain biking than I was motocross, but I also had a pretty good idea on how to ride motocross. So I was never that one to kind of master one and then try and switch. But it's hard to say whether one's easier to go the other direction, because a lot of moto guys ride a bit of mountain bikes, a lot of mountain bike people ride a little bit of moto. So there's always a kind of crossover there, which what's easier or what's better. But Kenny, in saying this, I don't think that downhill would be his sport to go into. Like, he's already, I think, 31 now, possibly older, and you don't get into downhill mountain bike racing at 31, 32 years old to be competitive. I just don't believe that's the path you go down to make it happen. Now, obviously he can try. I'd love for him to try. Even just the fact him talking about it, you see the hype, you see the comments, you see everything that's around that, and how excited people get to maybe see him do it. Personally, I think he'd be better off racing enduro, just because the speeds is slower. He will grind it out. You can see Kenny's got that work ethic. I think anyone at the top of motocross has a massive work ethic. He's obviously already been sponsored by Canyon and does ride enduro a lot, so he'd understand how the bikes work a little bit better. He's obviously had that prep going in, so I think doing an enduro race, obviously not a super hard, steep, rooty track. He's living in America. All the tracks out there are dusty and quite well built, so I think if he did an enduro on more of a bike park style track, I think he could have a fair crack at it. I think he'd go pretty well, but when it comes to downhill, I think he'd get a bit of a rude awakening for how hard it actually is. I don't think by any means he'd be able to qualify at a World Cup, and that's just going off me, who's done it for 18 years, and I struggled to qualify in my last season. Granted, I wasn't at the best, I guess, physical shape, mindset, all that aside. It's hard to qualify at these things now when they're top 60 in the world and everyone is going fast. To kind of try and come and break into that, yeah, it's gnarly. And I think a lot of people, especially in California or America, that ride those tracks go over to Europe and realize there is such a big difference on the level of tracks that you ride over there. Like, it's not to say American tracks like Snowshoe, Wyndham, it's not like they're not hard, but they're a different kind of hard. When you go to like a Val de Sol, when it's completely blown out or wet and muddy, like that is a different beast altogether. Or even Fort William, for just how repetitive and how hard you hit stuff. Yeah, it's just a completely different beast. But I think you can see now with even the level how quickly athletes are going fast. Like, you look at over the weekend with Hardline, like Ace's 17, I think Jackson's got to be 20 or 19. Like, everyone is a kid, because you don't really have that fear and you haven't broken things before and you don't have issues and you can bounce when you do crash. And so on and so forth, as you know. But when you get older, around that 30 mark and going on, that's like, obviously that's when people normally retire and do go into other sports like enduro or cross country or stuff like that, where you can still be really physically strong, but it's just like reaction times are a bit different, and just that, I guess, elasticness, anyway, of your body when you do have an accident or do like dab a foot or do something like that, where you can get really badly injured. But I think it's cool. It's just even in the conversation that he would be open to do something like that. And I know as someone who has recently retired, you do want to have these physical, I know, activities or goals to go after. So you don't just kind of feel like you're sitting on the couch and watching life go by. You need stuff where you push yourself to the very limit and test yourself. And yes, you can fail doing that, but it's how you figure yourself out, and it's who you become through pushing yourself to the very limit. And I think he's done motocross for pretty much his entire life, and you've kind of ticked every box you can. So it's like, all right, next thing, can we have a crack at this? I would just say downhill would probably be, especially at a World Cup level, a hard thing to break into. Like I said, I think Kenny's got the dog in him. He can push himself, he can grind things out, he can really physically go to that limit. And then I think enduro is just that little bit less speed. It's kind of, you can make more mistakes in enduro and still do well. Where downhill, you have to be so precise, start to finish, and you just can't make any mistakes. And I think for someone who, even he said he hasn't really even been on a downhill bike, to then figure out the weight and how to push, and it's just like, you can still go fast, but for beginners, it's go fast, make a mistake, go fast, make a mistake. And you see World Cup winning runs, and it's just their average speed from the top to the bottom of the track is amazing. And you see someone like Jackson and Troy and Acer over the weekend, like, it's just, they're fast everywhere. That's how they win. It's no particular place that they go faster. It's just the whole way down, their average speed is a lot quicker than everyone else, and that's how they maintain those fast winning runs. But I think it's cool to just be talking about this. Kind of came out of left field to see Kenny saying he wants to do something like that, but hopefully, yeah, hopefully he does try and dabble his foot in it. I saw Aaron Gwynn reached out to him and said, hey, I got a bike, you want to come ride it at Windrock? Let's do it. Tyler Berryman, I think, replied to it. So it's this cool community of respect from mountain bike people to motocross to mountain bike. And there is a certain connection that comes with that. Like, I'm friends with Regan Duffy, Kyle Webster, those boys. And there's like a mutual respect that comes from seeing someone push themselves on a motorcycle, seeing someone push themselves on a downhill bike, and knowing that they're so similar and kind of intertwined in the industry. So yeah, it'd be sick to see where this goes, and possibly may happen. So who knows? But yeah, it kind of gives you that same thought of when obviously Berner Kerr went to try and do the Supercross, and there was that big hype around it because it's just different and it's just someone giving it a crack. So yeah, if Kenny does do it, hats off to him. But yeah, my honest opinion, go race enduro. I think you'd do better, probably have more fun, and it'd be safer all around. But yeah, that's my 2 cents. Thank you, guys. If you want me to review something else or something else you want me to talk about, I would be keen to jump on here. There's a few things I want to talk about, especially the belt bikes. I'm finding that super interesting, but I need to do some research first before we get into it. But thank you, and I'll chat to you soon.